Oh. Did this start? It did, didn't it? I didn't know that. Sorry, everyone. Hi. I'm back on the old YouTube live dashboard, and so I didn't realise that that this has started streaming. I connected the stream thing to it, and it just starts. Whereas with the new UI, you start streaming, you can check the stream health when it works, and then you click go live to actually go live. So here I've been just sitting here, yeah, talking to myself for the last 3 minutes. I'm very glad I didn't do anything too embarrassing. I was coughing a heck. I know I was just in readiness for this my dulcet tones to greet you all. Anyway, hello everyone, and whoops. So I need to stop chatting on Slack so that I can actually pay attention to what's going on here. And thank you guys. I realise that it's all good. I'm pretty straightforward. Let's make sure I've not got anything open on this desktop that I shouldn't have. No, I have my AFK thing ready. Yeah, I think we're good to go. So this morning, in amongst wrangling children and getting the day wrong, so the kids who go to the school opposite, they had a book drive, and I was supposed to get up and help lug all of the books into a big lorry, big truck to haul off to the book sorting place. But due to clerical error, I thought it was tomorrow. So I just watched the truck drive away and went, oh, I suppose I should have been out there. So I'm feeling a bit bad. Hi, Carol. Oliver, you would have watched a silent typing stream. See, I still, so Oliver actually sent me some example streams of other people live coding, and I haven't actually watched them yet. So I have never actually watched anyone else live coding. That's not true, actually. I've watched, what's her name? She does like hardware-based stuff, teardowns and glitching and stuff. Super interesting. And then she's often just got like multiple cameras, and there are cats wandering around and stuff, and that's cool. And it's chill, but I like to talk. Shell check will find massive holes in all of my shell scripts, which is why I'm trying to get rid of the majority of them. Also, like the UI that I use, the IDE, has got a shell check like thing built into it, which is why there's sort of angry underlining here, like this is complaining that the site.show doesn't exist, because it doesn't. It exists on the host. Anyway, the story so far today is I have been playing around with Wine, and I have replaced the way that Wine is currently used to execute the Windows compilers that we run natively on Linux. Emulate on Linux. So Wine is the Windows emulator, simulator, layer, abstraction layer. I don't know what it's called. I think Wine does not stand for, Wine stands for Wine is not an emulator. Something like that. It provides all of the Win32 services and stuff. And so that is all great, but it is a bit of a problem because Wine doesn't play nicely with, or not necessarily plays nicely with Firejail. And Firejail, if you've been following the last few days, is the process isolation technique I'm going to be using to run both the compilers in a slightly more lax way and user code, once we get to that point. So I've been reminding myself how all of that stuff worked, and I've now unified. In fact, why don't I do a quick diff to remind myself, if nothing else, where the heck I am. I checked in some of this stuff already, so there is already a way of saying, hey, no, all execution, like literally everything that Compiler Explorer executes, should go through a sort of jailing process, process jailing process, I guess. Yeah, it should be jailed as a process. So let's remind myself what I've got here. So I have the Wine hack used to be part of the Compiler Explorer properties, which meant that it was like a global property. I'm now moving that all into the execution properties, which means that everything to do with execution is going to be in one place. So that's why this has disappeared. And then I've moved it into the defaults here, and I need to know what Wine server is here. Now, Wine emulates the whole like Windows subsystems, some of which are long-running processes and or take a while to fire up. So it is beneficial for me to have some kind of long-lived process running that is serving up the Wine environment. Otherwise, every time you run the compiler, it fires up a Wine server that then has to start up before the executable can start running. Then the executable runs, and then it shuts the Wine server down. Now, this does cause some amount of leakiness between processes, because while the Wine server is running, any kind of modified global state that's in it will propagate amongst anything else that's running in Wine. But that's actually a feature here. I don't like it, but I would prefer the Wine things to not time out all the time. So the way that works at the moment, oh dear, I'm going to go all over the place here, is in the Docker container that's running in Amazon, this script has a whole bunch of hacks to kill a Wine server. It puts Wine prefixes like the root of your emulated Windows system. So /tump/wine in this instance is a temporary directory. It make it, and then we run the Wine server, we kill it, we wait for the old one to die if there is one, and then we start a new one on purpose. And this is now a long-lived process that's going to run forever, and it's going to point at /tump/wine, and that's where all of its like inter-process communication stuff's done. Excuse me, that's all of the other, what's the words? Yeah, IPC, any kind of ephemeral files that are created will live in there as well. And then as long as I use the same environment variable, this wine prefix over here, when I'm executing wine itself, then it will connect to the long-lived wine server and it will run pretty quickly. So what this is hackily doing is, as part of the startup script for Compiler Explorer, I kind of run the wine server as a long-lived process and then like leave an environment variable set, which is pretty grim. And so instead of it being part of the shell scripts that run, I am going to now make it a first-class like feature within Compiler Explorer. So if you need a wine compiler running, I will go off and I will run wine server and then I will maintain it myself. So that's kind of background. Then that means also that I can control the jailing of that wine server, and then when I run a wine executable, I can attach it to the same jailed environment as the original wine server. And then there may be some crosstalk in the worst possible case between various wine compilations, but at least that there's a fence drawn around all of the Windows emulation stuff such that it doesn't leak out into the underlying system itself. And yes, Carol, that would be lovely. Thank you. Sorry, I keep forgetting to look over here at what you folks are saying. And now I'm being distracted because I can see myself waving my hands at myself in the sort of delayed a few seconds ago view of myself I can see in the window, which is very confusing. Okay, back to the diff then to show where we are. So this is why I have a wine prefix and a wine server where I didn't have those before. Those weren't configurable values before. Now I'm going to say, no, you can actually choose where that wine prefix goes. And in order for Compiler Explorer to fire up the wine server and monitor it, we're going to need to know where the binary is for that. And so this is just the defaults. I've got a local properties elsewhere that can override it from my local machine as before. What have I got in exec? Now, a lot of stuff has changed in exec. Exec, if you remember, is the file that exports, if I go to the end, these two functions, execute and sandbox. Execute is like a general purpose run anything I would like you with, run any executable that is almost always like a compiler or something. So there's some amount of jailing I can do to that, but I mostly trust that executable to not contain deliberately malicious things. You'll see why that's important in a second. And then I have a sandbox, which is no, this is with extreme prejudice, don't trust anything that you're about to run. And what's happened here is that previously in the various places around the code base, whenever we needed to run a Windows executable, there was code in those locations to sort of detect whether or not you needed to run it under wine or not, and then they would sort of shim it in. And instead what I've done here is I've said no, exec and sandbox both will know, or rather execute, sorry, will have that code in one place, and then I can control it in one location, which is obviously a better thing to do anyway. And so it means that anything that ends in .exe will automatically be run under wine, which just works, it turns out. If you remember yesterday, or whenever it was, a couple of days ago, I was on the fence about how I was going to deal with the current directory and how to rewrite stuff, because if you're not running something under Firejail, then the full path to the /tump/ wherever your compilation is going on is available to you. Whereas if you're running under Firejail, then suddenly that prefix of your input and output becomes the home directory, the temporary home directory, which is the only thing that the Firejail can write into. Then I hummed and hawed for ages, and I made some changes, backed them out, made some changes and backed them out, and eventually I've come up with a process by which, let me just go and find, where are we? So this is what I did yesterday. Is it in here? That's Sandbox Firejail. It's probably better if I actually show you in the IDE rather than the diff tool. But I now run through the arguments and I replace any references to that temporary directory with dot, so that it kind of just works. And it's hacky. I tried to think of some things that would break it, but it does work in all circumstances that I've tested it. So I'm happy to go with it rather than refactor the whole code base to have to know whether or not it's generating a set of command parameters that are either going to run in a jailed environment or in a unjailed environment. Okay, so that's the exec wine VC. I think these are just examples where I could luckily sorry, let me start again. previously this exec function was overriding the base implementation of exec, and it was doing this hack to substitute in wine. But we don't need to do that now because it's being done natively by the exec function itself. And then similarly in base tool, there was the same block of code basically, except this had even more hackery. So I've combined those, I've fixed it all up, and I think we're good to go with that. So I feel a lot better about that, which is a nice change as well. So where are we? Let's just show you where I'm at so far. If I could remember how to Alt-Tab to the right thing. Newer Bootstrap breaks the site. If you remember yesterday as well, I was upgrading Bootstrap, or I checked that in after I finished streaming, and then Ruben pointed out that actually we'd done it before and it broke the site in some way, but he's closed that now, and I should go and find out what happened, but I will come back to that. Oh yeah, something else I did yesterday as well. Well, you watched me probably do the change where we now have a staging environment, so I can actually start running. Oh, meow. Yes, cat. What? Doesn't sound like she's brought anything in because she's making a meowing sound, which is harder to do if you've got a bird or a mouse in your mouth. So yes, yesterday I made the staging environment and a beta environment. After I finished streaming, I added a new command to start and stop those environments, which hopefully will be useful to us down the line. So at the moment, we don't actually have a beta or a staging environment running because why would we? We're not using it. But soon, I hope to get a beta environment up, which will be running outside of Docker, which is kind of a scary thought, but that requires a lot more changes. Oh, that's because that's been there since yesterday. Yeah, sign in. Okay, so localhost, what do we get here? So at the moment I'm running just with Wine, and I have, no, that's that. I'm going to go to the image, Compiler Explorer, so make dev language C++. So I'm just running C++, and I've hacked my local configuration files to just have a few compilers so it doesn't take so long to start up. And I think this is going to fail spectacularly because at the moment I have got Firejail enabled. There it goes. And failing spectacularly. So I'm going to disable Firejail for a second. So that's in my execution.local. Oh, that's the image directory. Come on. Image directory, image project, execution.local. Come on, properties. And I'm going to just comment out this execution type equals Firejail. And thankfully, the make dev notices that that configuration file requires a reload of the whole thing. So it reloads. It's going to run through again. And there we go. Wine initials okay. So this is the new stuff. And now we're running without Firejail. And there's actually something I want to change now with some experimentation I was doing with Firejail. So there's a lot of info coming out of here. If you're using Wine, I figured that having a bunch of info lines is not going to hurt you. Let's go and look at the code, which is in here. And that will be in exec.js. So this is the bit that I glossed over a second ago. So execute is going to be called. Execute will look at the execution type configuration parameter, and it'll either go to Firejail or none as being the types. Execute none does this little trick where it says if it needs Wine, and needs Wine checks that all of those things that were being checked previously just ad hoc, then we're going to call execute Wine direct. Otherwise, we're calling execute direct. Execute Wine direct does a little bit of, let's go and have a quick look at it. Very straightforward stuff. We monkey with the environment to apply some Wine specific things. There are the Wine specific things here, the Wine DLL overrides, the Wine debug, and the prefix, which we read from configuration. And then we unshift the command that it wanted to run onto the front of the arguments. And then instead of running the command with a bunch of arguments, we run Wine with all of the arguments with the thing that we wanted to run in front of it. So that's pretty straightforward, and it just worked, which was lovely. Otherwise, execute direct, and execute direct is what it's always done. That's the same execute function it's always had. On the other hand, if we have execute Firejail, then we come to this function, and I'm starting to work on this right now. So this needs Wine stuff is new for the execute Firejail, and the rest of it most of it's checked in, or something that looks like it's checked in. If you want to follow along, that's to do look Actually, let's do that right now. Right, I've just realized that I've got a hard-coded executable in here, and we should probably do exec props Firejail. That was easy. And the default we can actually have is Firejail. I don't mind that at all. Actually, no, I don't. This is a mistake. Putting defaults in code typically is a mistake. So especially when I have got execution.defaults.properties, and up here I can just write Firejail equals Firejail. There you are. Now we've got a default that's in a place where you'd expect to find a default, which is in the configuration file. Excellent. Excellent. And then I'm going to inline that there, because why would I even care? Yes. No. That's not inline everything. I just wanted to inline this particular one here. That makes me feel better. Args equals jailing options. That seems silly, so we will inline that. No, that's the same thing again. Okay, sorry. We're now doing a bit of like on-the-fly refactoring, just because it looked daft. It followed basically the pattern of something from earlier, and it's lost. Base push command. What? That doesn't look right. It should be on shift, right? No. That goes at the end. Yeah. Okay. So I've confused the heck out of myself. So we're all good. We're all good. Everything is awesome. Let's go through this then. So the options that I'm passing to the Firejail are different from when we're sandboxing. And if you recall yesterday, we went through an awful lot of combinations and permutations of what the heck should go inside sandbox.profile. And actually now I've extracted a lot of that out into this standard.inc. So this is the thing that's going to be shared by everything. And most of this is what we went through yesterday. A few things have changed. As I experimented with this, I discovered I could add more things, which is great. And then as I started on this execute.profile, which is going to run the compiler, I had to make it a little bit more lenient. So I had to take some things out of this standard shared set of features and put them into a per profile. So the sandbox one, for example, takes a standard one, and then we whack all of the bin and the etc., and we prevent those M mapping of executable files. So executable memory pages, which compilers actually needed, it turns out. That stopped GCC 4 from running, but not the more recent GCC. So I wonder if that was actually a mistake in those, but I don't see any reason to prevent compilers from doing that right now. We still got these to-dos here, and we have got some limitations here, including that fork bomb. That's still a to-do. That's still something we need to think about. And we're limiting the sizes of files and the number of files. And again, this is for sandbox, whereas in execute, we've got nothing. We just allow the etc password file, because some of the compiler things use some of the libc functions that open up the password file, maybe just to get your own name or something. I don't actually know why, but after much consideration, and even though it would be lovely if I could get rid of this, because every third email I get about Compiler Explorer is like, hey, you can get the etc password file. I'm like, yes, you can go and get it yourself. It's in Docker. It's actually it's in the Compiler Explorer image repository. You can go knock yourself out. But yeah, anyway, that file is the only thing that's going to be available in password. In etc. And then we're going to whitelist where some of the license files live, so that the Intel compiler can run. If I don't put that in, the Intel compiler complains that it hasn't got a license, which it hasn't. So that's nice. So that's where we're with those. And if we go back to exec.js, you can see we are saying quiet. We're going to say profile is that particular profile, ignoring wine for now. What I've said is, if the execution environment required a particular current working directory, then that is the one we set. So we're going to actually set -- private equals that. So that will map that current working directory as the home folder in the jailed environment. No, Chady, I only went live once yesterday. I hacked around at it in the afternoon. I think I needed to give my voice a rest. So having then mapped the directory that was supposed to be the current working directory, I then replace anything that refers to that exact path with the dot character. So like if you've got -o/tump/blah/example.s, which is what it will be for a temporary thing, you'll run as that as a current working directory, and then I will replace that as a dot slash, which is hacky, but there's just too many pieces of code that relied on using full paths. Like I said, I went down the excuse the pun, I went down the path of changing everything, but then it gets very, very confusing very quickly, as there are some things for which you need to give a relative path when you're like running the executable, but then when the executable has finished running and the JavaScript code here, the node code, needs to open up the file that it output to, it needs the actual full path. It needs the /tump / example.s. And mixing those two things got very confusing, and I just didn't want to get down there. So this is my hack. If, however, the command does not have a current directory, then I just use -- private, which just gives it an empty home directory. And so far that seems to be working. And that's it. So remember, if you recall, we've turned off Firejail, and here we are running Wine happily. Oh, no, we're not. No, we're not running anything, are we? Oh, it was restarting because I'd made a minor change, apparently. Please to wait. Come on, the Webpack. Three, 2, 1. There we are. And here is Webpack. And so we've got just 3 wineable, that's not right, wine versions of the compiler here. Lovely. They all work a treat. Okay, so one bit I didn't talk about, I realize now, back to the right one, is this apply wine env. So if we do need wine, so yeah, we're not running through Firejail. Sorry, we're not running through Firejail. So what's happening at the moment is just execute none is being called, which says if it needs wine, we do this nonsense here with the apply wine env. And we just need to do the same thing in Firejail. But the interesting thing here is inside apply wine env, I initialize wine. And initialize wine up here says if I haven't already initialized wine, or if I have already initialized wine, I'm done because I initialize it once. And then this is where all those other output messages you were seeing were coming out. Let me try and show both of them side by side, and then we can get to some level of understanding. So here is all of that output here. So we're going to do initializing wine in this particular prefix. We're going to kill. So all that stuff that was previously in bash commands is now being done by Compiler Explorer on purpose. And the thing that occurred to me about this is that I am running the new long-lived wine server. I'm running it here, and I'm literally letting it free. I'm detaching from it here, this detached true, so it will outlive this process, and we won't even, the exec sync here won't wait for it to finish. And now I think about it, I don't think I should do that. I think I should run it and manage that process myself. Excuse me. Then I'm in sort of control of that particular wine server. At least that's a thought. There were already some weird issues where if I didn't detach the process, or I didn't attach the process to std in, std out, and std, then it would hang at this point, or other times execution would hang. So I'm still on the fence about that. We might come back to that. So yeah, another choice would be to use the child process stuff to actually fork and spawn and hold on to that process as a child process and keep it at like arm's length, knowing that I can control it and I can kill it and shut down and things like that, which seems like the right thing to do. So what I need to do really here is teach this wine, initialize wine, how to run these things inside a Firejail container, or maybe I don't know yet, but I definitely need to run the wine server inside the Firejail controller. Otherwise, the jailed wine process will, yes, exactly, Pantufel, yeah. Yes, I should, I think, is that, because then there's no way that even a jailed wine process can talk to anything and look at anything that is outside of its jail. If it can talk to the wine server and the wine server's not in the jail, then we're in trouble because the wine server can go and get any file we like, and I don't want that. So this definitely has to live inside a jail if indeed we're running under the Firejails. So before I start and try and encode this, what I was doing before was trying to work out, let me kill meld, trying to work out what flags, if any, I needed to pass, whether they need to be different for wine in order to get this to work. So over here, I'm running Firejail with just the default. In fact, I'm going to do -- no profile. No profile. And this -F here means it runs in the foreground. It doesn't background. It doesn't disappear. And I need to do -D, otherwise it times out. D, I think that's the right one. No, D is not the right one. P, that's it, permanent. Oh, interesting. Interesting. That does not work at all. Oh, is that because I already have a file? Yeah, this is running, of course, over here. I'm already running in /temp/wine prefix over here. So it's saying, oh, you already have a wine server there. So let's just call this wine test. And of course, we need to actually create that directory. temp wine test. Brilliant. Okay, so now I have a jailed, in the most superficial way, wine running with a wine prefix of, what did I call it? Oh dear, temp wine test. I'm going to steal all of that to there, foreground. Okay. In this shell, actually we'll do it in this shell over here, because then you can see both at the same time. I'll make those even Stevens. I'm going to paste that and do user bin wine64. Host name has been my trick to run. See, this is not what I was expecting. Not what I was expecting at all. Configuration has been, temp wine test has been updated. Kernel K it says, and now we haven't detached. And I don't know why that would be. This was one of the problems that I was having earlier with this. So it looks like maybe those two processes can't talk to each other. I mean, it's definitely created a configuration in /temp/wine test. But the fact that it is sort of wedged here is interesting to me. Hello, Polypirate. All right, I'm going to kill the wine server in the left-hand side window. And if that unfrees the chap on the right-hand side, that's a clue that they are talking to each other, but maybe incompletely. Oh, but before I do that, I'm going to have a quick look in varlog syslog and see if there's anything funky in there. No, nothing funky in there. Oh, I already have one. How many times can I look at? All right, so killing the wine test, the wine server now. Yeah, and it's interestingly, the other side here, this hostname thing has happily exited. Well, no, it noticed, so there's definitely some crosstalk between those two things. That's great. They're not totally jailed from each other, but it still hasn't returned. And we know that it's been able to get the hostname because it's printed it out there. Kernel K, as we discussed yesterday, is my host name and is the one of the protagonists of Danger Mouse, which is an excellent children's TV show. Cold coffee. So I'm going to Control C that and see what happens. So let's try running wine with debug. I think I can do that. Does that do it? No, that's not the magic for that. I think it's an environment variable I have to set. I think wine debug equals all is what I'm going to do over here. Wine debug equals, whoops, debug equals all. This might be a lot. Oh, good grief. Oh, and of course I'm not running a wine server either, which is daft of me. Holy cow. All right, let's not do all. All is too many. Instead, over here, I'm going to run the wine server with the debug flag, which I think DN. Okay, so let's do D9. All the debugs. So process initialized in 14 milliseconds. Wine server starting. Something to do with registry. Sure. Let's. Okay, clearly they are communicating. That's excellent. That's exactly what we wanted to see. But interestingly, this process does not exit. I wonder what that is. Thank you, Gareth. Yeah, I'm glad you agree. It is good fun, and the new version of Danger Mouse is particularly, I think, is a great logical successor to it. Even though I wasn't convinced about the voices to start with. Kevin Eldin and what's his face? The Danger Mouse voice. Anyway, it's not a patch on David Jason in my opinion, but you know, David Jason's getting on a bit. All right, well, we've got nowhere with that. I'm just floundering here. Let's kill that. Parent is shutting down by hostname. Let's just run CMD, because this is what I was testing with originally. So obviously all the debugging stuff in the world is happening over there. Moo. Okay. Mount manager. All right. Well, it eventually started. And we can see now I've dropped into a Windows shell prompt here, which always is amusing to do. But if I exit from here, we're still left with this hanging process. That's really odd, isn't it? That's really odd. Oh, yes, no, they haven't ruined it, Gareth. I think, you know, give it 3 or 4 episodes, and I think you'll get over any of the like things in your head that maybe are like, hey, that's not how it should sound or whatever. And then you get into it, it's great. And as I was saying yesterday, the best thing about it, if you've got young kids, is that they're like 10 minutes long, so you can always do the just one more then before bedtime, without it being like a whole half hour or something. Is it easier to code when you can talk us through what you're doing? It does, yes. Actually, so I was commenting this to my wife just before she went out, and I've been far more productive these last few times that I've been live coding than I am if I just sit here. I mean, there are 2 reasons. One, I have to explain it, which can slow me down, right? And does mean that sometimes when I'm doing very exploratory work, like I'm doing now, I feel like I have to justify what I'm doing a little bit more. That's not necessarily a bad thing, you know, but it does maybe stunt the creativeness a little bit. But the rubber ducky type thing is great. So I am definitely thinking things through. And more importantly, it prevents me from getting distracted, right? I mean, how easy is it for me to get totally distracted and, you know, browse the internet or look up on Twitter or whatever. And now I feel I can't really do that because you're watching me. So that helps a lot too. So doing a couple of hours of this every day, or an hour and a half or whatever, I think is really good. It does cause strain on my voice, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. All right, why don't we try this without Firejail? Just to make sure that I am not barking up the wrong tree. So we want this without Firejail. So it's just going to be wine prefix equals wine test, wine server minus F minus D9, all the debugs. Off that goes. Wine server is starting. And then this one also without... Oh, I haven't got no prof... Did I have no profile in that previous one? I did. Okay, good. All right. Command. Okay, long time. I have to look good for the... Yeah, don't I look good? I haven't even had a shower this morning. I'm that horrible. And I just threw my glasses on and I put this on. We had a bit of a problem with the basement. There's been a lot of rain recently and the basement's been flooding, which is a bit of a problem when, you know, Chicago is on a flat plane. If you ever wanted to know what an infinite plane looks like, you can go up any of the tall buildings in Chicago and look out the window, and as far as you can see, it is absolutely flat as a pancake. And then there's a giant lake right next to us, and it does go down a little bit. It goes down just so that it can fill up with water, and about 200 yards that way is the lake, and it is then about 40 miles across. So there's a lot of water over there at like basically the same height as me, which means that my basement, which is below the level of the lake, tends to fill up with water when it gets really wet. But we had some problems with that, and the washing machine was off, so my wife's like, there's water everywhere, so I just threw on some clothes and ran downstairs. Oh, thank you everyone, by the way. I do appreciate the positive feedback I get. It makes it very much easy to carry on doing this, and I enjoy it, and I'm a big show-off anyway, as you probably have picked up, so I don't mind it. I just need to stop saying and so. All right, without Firejail, everything is great. Let's try Firejail just on the wine binary. Yeah, exit. Aha. Do it again, make sure it's reproducible. Run it with hostname because that's less work. Kernel K. Let's get rid of the debug on the Firejail on this side. That's what we wanted to see. And in fact, now we put -- quiet. And over here, everything looks brilliant. Let us now run this one with -- oh no, back to Firejail. Where is Firejail? Here he is. It. So why? What is the thing? There's some timeouts going on the left-hand side there, which is unusual. I mean, there are so many layers of hack going on here, right? The fact that I'm running some dreadful process jailing system and hoping that everything just works out does seem rather hopeful, doesn't it? I wonder if there's some IPC thing that needs to go on. So I know that Firejail... come on, mouse. Firejail has some way of connecting multiple environments together. Let us go find login shell compatibility. No. Join, I think, is join equals name. Okay, join file system, join network name. Programs running the Sandbox is available only to root user. Well, that's not ideal. Okay, join the Sandbox identified by name or by PID. So, okay, well, let's try that. So we're going to run here, this one over here, the server, in all the debug. I'm going to actually, I don't think that the wine debug is all that useful. So let's get rid of let's just put D on, not D9. D9 seems to be all the debugs. Then on this side, we'll do grep Firejail. I think minus list was the command. Yes, Pantufel, that's a good point actually. One of the things that I do that is a very excellent point. Oh, I see. It's many people are smarter than me. This is so good. Just own the and so. Thank you. Yes. Yes, thank you. You're right. You're right. So something I had to do, which was in the Explorer image, if I remember rightly. No, not here. Where is it? I remember. At the moment, everything that's being executed on the live site is actually going through this horrible compiler wrapper shell script. And my mouse is dying. I realise it's not my computer under heavy load. It is the fact that there we go. And this compiler wrapper is responsible for the horrible, totally stupid LD preload trick that I was previously using. Which, if you want to laugh at how dreadful my C code is, you can go and have a look at preload.c. But in here, we have export display equals empty. That's like on purpose, making sure the display is not set. And I wonder if that was one of those things that in time immemorial has meant I'd forgotten. So we'll try that as well. So we'll bear that in mind. It could easily be something like that. So thank you, Pantufel. So this is running. We've got a list. We've got 4373. So I'm going to run this. So one thing at a time, and we're going to do -- join in here. Equals 4373. Equals 4373. No profile after join. Okay. Invalid quiet after join. Okay. Well, isn't that interesting? I think we have a solution. We just run everything in the same sandbox, and then we're definitely, like, I say definitely, it's clear that we're getting what I was my original intention, which is like everything just lives in one jail, and that jail is the one where the server runs in. So let's just see if that is actually going to work. I mean, first of all, are we actually in... oh golly, look, every time I press any key, something happens with the server. That is surprising how much work is being shuttled off to the server. So let's go and do ls dir slash, there is all the things. So mnt home, we're going to see home Matthew, and we're going to see all my things, and you get to see what lives in my home directory there, which obviously I'm glad does not contain anything too embarrassing. So assuming this is a good fit, and ignoring the display thing for a second, but return to it, I'm now going to shut that chap down, and instead of doing no profile, I am going to do profile equals etc. excuse me, Firejail execute.profile. I think that's what it was called. Okay. And immediately it exited. No suitable user bin wine server executable found. So there's something now, if we try to actually jail the process more than whatever is you get for default, that upsets wine. So now we're going to be on a journey of discovery. Are you ready for the journey of discovery? I'm going to go to... oh, this is the image. Too many things open. And I'm going to copy paste execute.profile for now and call it wine.profile. Yes, everything is fine. And we're including the standard.inc, and I'm just going to comment that out for now and then see if we can't get this to work. Well, of course it won't work because I'm still using the execute profile. Wine.profile. Unknown command, user bin wine server. Isn't that interesting? What's going on? Okay, let's get rid of private, etc. Let's get rid of everything. So we've just got an empty file here. This should hopefully... okay, everything's fine there. Is it the private, etc.? Interesting. Interesting. I wonder what files in etc. that wine server needs in order to work. Let's go over to... debug profile equals that one. Okay, it's not complaining specifically over there. I guess we're going to have to maybe groups. Yeah, I don't know if we can work out which file we're missing without like running strace, which I'm not against. But strace seeing something running in a Firejail environment under wine seems like a bit of a mind problem. Although it's saying unknown command, Fish is complaining about that. So let's just do ls user bin. User bin wine server. Oh, look at that. What is that actually pointing at? Etc. alternatives wine server. Of course. Ha ha ha. So the problem here is because as soon as we don't mount etc., then the alternative system that is what is actually choosing which wine server we're running. So what does that actually point to at the moment? Alternatives wine server. I always forget how to do this the real way. I just end up following the links here. User bin wine server stable. Of course, stable. My bottom. Okay, so this is not necessarily going to be a problem. We're going to run user bin wine server dash stable. All right, let's start putting things back into that. Well, let's go for gold actually. Let's just do execute profile again. Now we know what it was. Wine server directory temp wine test cannot be accessed. Of course, because we are deliberately preventing temp from persisting, which is not a problem, you know. It's actually not a problem. ideally, you see, we would this temporary. I mean, the fact that temp wine test is a thing at all is. I don't care if it's there or not, or which one it is. It's just got to be a directory somewhere. I don't want it to be persistent necessarily. So let's just let's own that and go mukdir temp wine test, or rather, let's do mukdir $wine prefix and run. And I'm going to put that in single quotes, otherwise we're going to have all sorts of expansion happening already. Wunderbar. So now we actually have generated in the empty /temp directory, we have generated a new wine prefix, which will go away when I hit Control-C here. It's gone. And then hopefully we can still run our wines here. Okay, well I need to do Firejail --list 5945 unknown command user bin wine 64. Intéressant. Oh, I bet it's the same thing. ls-l user bin wine 64. Stable? Yeah, there we go. All right. -stable. So there's definitely some complaints about Windows and displays and things like that. So we can obviously we can set that up too. There we are. This is going to work, you know. Exit. Oh no, that's not how that's supposed to be. This is meant to carry on running forever. But I didn't give it the flags to carry on forever, so we just need to do forever and foreground. So now, yeah, of course it's not that anymore. And then in a minute we're going to be able to put this all together. And everything will be amazing. Oh, hello. Sorry, I haven't actually been looking at the chat. I've been in my own little world. So all that stuff will go away with the debug information stuff. Inception played out in real life here. Wine.conf. Yeah. Yes. I have many random files. It's honestly, so often I'll have like badger.cpp im/temp, or I'll echo something to what I believe to be a randomly named file that either in my home directory or in the temporary directory, and I'll discover there's already one there. The NIM language. Yeah, the problem with NIM is, as I understand it, is that NIM compiles to C, and so that then there's this sort of combinatorial explosion of NIM versions then targeting GCC versions. So you say, well, what combinations should I support? I'd be happy to accept it. So PR, there is a whole, in the documentation folder on the site, there is a how to add a new language, and it's pretty straightforward, I think, and NIM might be relatively straightforward, and I'd definitely accept a PR for it. Maybe we just pick the latest GCC or something like that, but you know, I like the fact that if you go back to the same URL over and over again, then you get the same output, and if we change it to always be the latest GCC, then potentially things could change if GCC moves forward, but the NIM language stays still, so we could actually think about it. Or show the C output, that's true as well. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, thank you, Oliver. I always forget that. So people are clever, and I'm not. I mean, I get by. Oh, golly, we've been going for 53 minutes already. That is quite something. Okay, CE node, and we can run it again, and it's quick the second time, so that is excellent. Right, let's rewind the clock and try and work out and get something concrete out of this. I don't think we need wine.profile because, as it happens, execute.profile has been working just peachily. What we need to do inside exec.js now is inside initialize wine, we're going to run a long-lived server, and we're going to run it as a foreground process. We're not going to detach it. And we are going to get the PID back of it and let it run in the background. So let's think about that. We're not going to use exec sync anymore. We're going to use spawn sync, which is And it returns a spawn sync returns buffer something something something. All right, somewhere up here I've already written code that looks a bit like this. Set up stream child.on. What is child? Child comes from spawn const child equals that. Yes, maybe I do need to detach it actually. I think I probably do need to detach it still. So let's just put that back in. Detach. And I don't mind all that stuff going out to the world. Spawn sync. So this says it returns a what? A spawn sync returns of a buffer of t. So that means I'm going to get a buffer of stood out and stir, which I'm cool with. But then more importantly, there's the PID. Hurrah. So, oops, I've lost myself. Hi, Oscar. Mapping from CRUST to ASM works. It looks like magic. It is not magic. I'm glad to say it is lots of horrible hacks. So the way, just as a very, very quick overview, you can look in asm.js, I think is where most of it happens. ASM parser.js is probably it. Yeah. Just don't look too closely. Most of this stuff is to do with the filtering. But deep in here, it's the long and the short of it is it's parsing the directives that -g puts in the compiler. Sorry, it puts in the assembly output, and noting when they correspond to lines that are in the original code. So it's pretty straightforward. It's not as clever or magic as you might imagine it is. I'm both embarrassed to say, but also kind of pleased. It's nice that it's relatively straightforward. Everything else is complicated, and it's written and it's slowly accrued more and more and more special cases for different weird instruction sets. And ideally I would go back at it and start again from a very principled, like this is how it should be done, and then we can like have a DAG of like what things depend on what other things, but it's just hacky at the moment. Yes, thank you, Pantoufel. Pantoufel knows all this stuff as well. Okay, brain, where was I? I was here and I was going to look at spawn sync. And this is going to be some nasty global variable. Let wine server equals null. We'll start with that, and then we don't need that as such, I don't think. If wine server return, we can get rid of wine initialized, and we can get rid of wine initialized there, and then we're just going to say wine server equals all of that nonsense there. And then we're going to test wine. Now, the way that we're going to test wine here is we're going to have to actually call the real execute process. That doesn't make any sense. What am I talking about? I want to call execute wine or execute wine Firejailed. Well, actually, right now this doesn't actually matter. No, we'll get it working without Firejail, but soon that wine server will have to use as it won't actually be the wine server directly. It will be the PID of the Firejail of the wine server, which we'll then use in the code below. I know what I mean. Hopefully, hopefully you'll work it out in a second, or it's clear enough. Let's do some logging though. So wine server, win server, wine server PID equals. See, isn't that ironic? The line below, I'm using the cool, funky new syntax, but not here. Do I need the dollar? I need the dollar. I've been going in and out of Python and JavaScript, and they have different rules for this, and it's driving me quite bonkers. Wine server.pid. All right, let's just see if we're even on the right page with that. So at the moment, we're still not running with Firejail, and I am just trying to remind myself where I am. Isn't the best code usually pretty hacky? To start with, yes. And then if you one day you'll be lucky, like I have been, to work with somebody who doesn't write hacky code, and you sit down and they sit there and they think about it really hard, and then they write 3 lines of beautiful, succinct, perfect code that just you can see has no bugs, and you're like, oh yeah, there is another way. There's another local minima in the graph. It's probably lower than the hacky code. I'm very much like to keep typing until it's working, and slowly like refine it and refine it and refine it until I've got something which looks okay-ish. But I've been, yeah, there's some people I've worked with are just on another level. I'm very lucky. Okay, so that worked, actually. Let's just get the C++ stuff, because I didn't notice what was going on. I didn't read the output. Sean Parent's ways. Yeah, that's it. That's the Sean Parent right now. I love Sean, and I love the things that he's done for the language and the way that he thinks about stuff, and his presentation approach is just so calming. It's lovely. It's like sort of Bob Ross, like, we just put a nice little rotate over here. But I can't think that way. So I found that pair programming with somebody who is like that. Oh, good, there we are. Wine server equals 7340. Beautiful. Pair programming with someone like that is great, because I think that somebody like me, who is just like bang the keyboard and infinite monkey, sort of eventually will get the right answer, is a good foil for somebody getting too caught up in the thinking for 2 days. So I think you can meet somewhere in the middle where it's not hacky, you get the benefit of the careful thinking, and also the person who's just saying, I'm just typing code, you can pontificate about what the class should be called, I'm just going to call it Ian until you come up with a better name. And then by the time that you've thought of a better name, we realise we don't need the class at all. And then everyone's happy. Okay, so the wine server PID thing just worked, which was nice. And we get kernel K, wine initializer K. Yeah, lovely. Alles gut. Alles klar. Also, wir müssen das Firejail supporten. Alright, that's the limit of my German. Oh, come on, go away. I've just realised that's been there all the time at the bottom. So I think what I would like to do first is make this testing wine. So this testing wine is not really testing wine. It's actually testing wine and running the first command so that the environment is sort of bootstrapped and works. Because you've probably noticed the first, when we were running out of a temporary directory. Gosh, I'll get there. That yeah, this needs to be done a whole different way, doesn't it, for Firejail? All right, I'm going to come back to that thought, because I'm just looking at the code, this beginning part of initialize wine. It's going to have to just be totally different. I think this just needs to be initialize wine direct and initialize wine Firejail, and then we're done. And it's not too much work. Okay, and maybe we'll look at it and go, oh yeah, no, these two things can be combined in some way, but not now. Short iteration loop kind of guy. Yes, Alifar, I think we would get on very well, my friend. And I know we do, but yeah. I can't go more than about 12 seconds without compiling something. That's probably why you've seen me just running the code and running the code again, and even though nothing's changed. It's kind of my nervous tick. Yes, so initializing wine and prefix and all that stuff. So all this stuff up here is going to have to change, because in Firejail, we're going to actually have to do that in the jailed container. Just like I was doing on the single line with bash-c mukdir, blah, blah, blah. But we also know that wine server won't be running anymore. Mind you, if we're in control of the wine server ourselves, then there's no need to ever stop, like, do all this waiting for pre-existing services to stop, because we'll kill it ourselves when we end. Ha 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 ha. Okay. All right. We're going to simplify this, and then eventually we'll get back to firejailing this. How are we doing for time? 12. All right. I've got probably about half an hour before my wife gets back and we've decided to go out for lunch, which is lovely. But I need to do process dot. There's a way of doing this. On exit. No. On. Before exit. Ha 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 ha. That looks good to me. And I'm presuming this takes some kind of magical lambda-y thing. And you know what we're going to do here? We're going to do logger.info monkeys. That is literally the level of awesomeness I operate at. Let's get the... Oh, no! Stop being so slow. There we are. Okay. Control C. Ah! That is sadness. I was hoping that would shut down nicely, you see. And then I would get to see my before exit, but I'm not seeing anything. Just receive SIGINT killing child process is not ideal. I wonder if that's a symptom of using supervisor here. We will see. So, funny story. John Skeet and I used to work together at Google and spent many happy times chatting about stuff. That's when, before he became even more famous, he was already like doing a lot of presentations at the time, and the whole Tony the Pony thing came out of conversations we had over coffees in the micro kitchen in Google London. So it's a funny old world. It's a funny old world. And yeah, so myself and a couple of other people, including Joe Walnes, who's now at Apple, and oh golly, who? We used to run Malcolm Rowe, who's a childhood friend of mine. We used to run a thing at Google London called the Open Source Jam, and it was like we invited people to Google. We all talked about open source, and if I remember rightly, I think we were pushed for time. John did a lightning talk and didn't have any preparation, so he just wrote out and drew like all of them and wrote them out with a Sharpie, and I think that's where he first started doing those kinds of stuff. I don't know if he still does it. I haven't watched any of his stuff, but yeah, he's a really lovely person, and his whole family, they're just wonderful. Like you'd imagine, people are nice in general, or at least in my experience. I either have rose tinted vision or I'm just extremely fortunate, or both. Okay, so crashing child doesn't actually, that's annoying. That is annoying. So we can't control that wine server ourselves. Well, maybe we can. I should probably Google. I'd love to do this. So node catch control C, which is not what it's called, of course, but Google will provide detecting control C in Node.js. Oh, God bless you, Stack Overflow. Most people, I think that's true. There are a number of people who aren't nice and they're very vocal. Do I need to do that? You don't need to read from the keyboard. Yeah, exactly. There's not the keyboard. I know that. Does that actually work? Let's just paste that into here and see what could possibly go wrong, right? Let's just put that in and see what happens. Whatever happened, whatever went wrong when you just took random code off the internet and pasted it directly. That's also true, Luca. Yeah, I have found that too. And so many times in my career I have been what other people have maybe described as too kind to somebody, only to discover it comes round and has been brilliant for me. Like I've just some unusual random email from somebody and I've taken the time to reply, and everyone said, why? It's going to take up too much of your time. And then it's turned around and that person has ended up saying, hey, I've got this thing for you that's really useful. And it's like, that's great. So, okay, what do we do here? So we've done all this stuff. And if I hit Control C here, no, you see, because I think Supervisor is picking that up. All right, I'm sort of going down a bit of a weird blind alley, I think, here, because it's almost like we don't need to do it that way. All right, well, all of this is going to go away, go away, go away. Come on. And with the Firejail, we know. Oh, I don't know. See, maybe if I don't detach here. Hang on. AUX, grep. Yeah, exactly, grep wine. How many of these have we got running right now? Oh, many of them. So let's kill 6273. Do this again. Any more wines? Yes. Kill 27802, 27815. Right, there should be no wines running on my system. Except for that one, 27815, which I just killed. Hey, take the hint. Oh, don't make me do this. There we go. Wonderful. So if I don't detach, does it still work? And then when I kill the process tree, does it also kill that wine server? Because then we've kind of got a solution to this, which is like, as part of the natural control seeing stuff, everything dies. Does that make sense? It makes sense. It makes sense in my head. Oh, it takes so long. Webpack is a slow thing. We have so many dependencies as well. I really wish we didn't. But I don't fancy writing my own text editor. All right, lovely. Press RS for restarting the process. Never noticed that before. Testing wine. Kernel K. Wine initialized OK. Starting a new long-lived wine server. Okay, so let's do over now. I see. I'm doing this. This is my natural. I've got such a trigger finger on making new terminals, but I'm trying to teach myself not to. I just keep a minimal number of them. So we're going to over here. We're going to say, oh, that's interesting. Making a new long-lived server does not seem to have made a new long-lived server, does it? Because there's not anything running. What PID did it get? Apparently 9097. PS 9097. So that clearly did not work. What happened there? I did not detach from it. And is that enough to kill it? Seems surprising. I mean, who knows what it's doing in fairness. And let's put -D in there and see what happens. So now it will be running in debug, and because I've attached standard, stood in, stood out, stood error to the actual real ones, we should actually see it outputting. So 9408, PS 9408, it are dead. Listen to you just console log into display console logs. Yes, yeah, I do actually. Yeah, that's a good point. I think what's happening is that because what's really catching the SIGINT is supervisor in this instance, I can there's probably a command line switch to supervisor, if I'm honest. I can probably do that. That would probably be a better solution to this in the temporary. But I'm now intrigued as to why the heck the wine server died. Confused am I? Let's put detached back in here. Was it detached? True. Detached. Yes, that's detached. There's some Docker stuff in there. We need to get rid of that. Docker, it turns out, is not a great security thing. See that crashing child it's doing there is because the files have changed. Supervisor just crashes the child, and I don't use the word crash to mean shut down the process. It's not right. Okay, 9600. Let's have a look and see. Do we have a process 9600 now? We do not. Okay, we've gone backwards here. Is there something I need to do here? I've got this process thing. I've got a PID. I didn't actually test to see if it was still running, of course, after we first moved to spawn sync. Minus F is foreground, right? Maybe I need to not give it anything there. Is that it? If it's got a stood in, it doesn't like it. But I mean, the thing is, we're not actually seeing any output at all. I mean, I'm going to wag this. Let's give it a go. Well, I mean, Hail Mary it, whatever the local is. Exactly, yeah. Crash has a very specific meaning to me. 9926. What's happening? All right, let's run wine server myself with -P, -F, and -D, and just make sure I haven't completely. So we're not seeing all of that. Shutdown causes here. We're not seeing that starting PID equals 10071. So something's happening there. Maybe it's because I'm using this sync thing. So here I'm using spawn without sync. This is like how I run every other command, just that way. And then there's all this stuff to do with timeouts and set timeouts. I'm going to try just a normal spawn here. Let's get rid of the unused thingamajig there. Spawn. Sync. This, we're going to attach. No, yeah, stood in. I'm going to leave it stood in, like changing only a few things at a time. I just hit Control S, which saves it, which means it gets bunged over there. Wine server PID equals undefined. Aha. Okay, so because obviously the PID only is available after the spawn completes, which is something we do is on some on thingamajig. Where do we get that? On exit, on error, on close. Yeah, okay. Maybe spawn sync is the right thing to do, but I just wish I knew what was happening here. Spawn. You know, I don't want to have to make this asynchronous because this is a synchronous call and we're during startup. It's not like we're going to... Okay. Excuse me. Why is this standard out not appearing? Starting a new long-lived wine server. We spawn sync. We have these... I'm putting all of the output into what should be stood in, stood out, and stood error. Wouldn't hurt to say what server it is. Is it a possibility to be noisy on that spawn? Yeah, I don't know. Quite. I maybe don't quite get what you're getting. Sig term according to Git. Okay, thank you, Luca. Yeah, I can probably change it to be a sig in and then have it shut down gracefully, which would be nicer in general. Oh, I've been talking and not actually looking at the output. Scrolly scroll. Oh, interesting. What? Is it just a simple thing as that? I've just got it to print out a new server. Is it just an empty string? Oh no, user bin wine server. Okay. PID equals 10742. I am confused, to say the least. Cool, thank you, Travis. That sounds like a great idea. If you want to do that, then I'll definitely help you with the configuration and stuff. Okay, so let's just go through this. Remain in the foreground for debugging. I want it to, maybe I don't want it to remain in the foreground, but I certainly wanted to keep hold of that process so that we know that it lives in the jail environment and we can get hold of it. Kill, make it persistent. That's the P is the persistent and debug is -D. So that is just odd. Why do we not see anything? What happens if I make this echo? Quote that. Because that should output to stood out, right? We don't see the output, but yet here with this testing wine kernel K, that does work. Maybe spawn sync doesn't work the same way for output. Like spawn sync. So we get a command. Oh, we get args and options. How? Oh, spawn works differently, doesn't it? Dun dun dun. This needs to be server, and then we need to give it a list of arguments. This is a much more sane API. -P, comma, -F, comma, -D. Isn't that terrible? I mean, it's great, actually. What am I talking about? And you notice how confident I am? I immediately just changed it. I got rid of the echo and everything. Is there any documentation about how to add a new language? There absolutely is. Let me find it for you, Travis, so that you may see. If we go to Compiler Explorer, not .com or .beta. No, not even there. Compiler Explorer. This normally auto-completes to the issues page. There it is. You can tell that I more often visit the issues page than anything else. Oh, potential security vulnerabilities. It is the lowest setting, and I want to go to docs, and then adding a language is there. So there is a lot of stuff on this, and if you search through the pull requests, I think you can sort of search for. Let's search for something like what did we add recently? Language. This is class. Adding for transport. So something like that. This is probably a decent PR to like template things off of. You'll need to do 2 pull requests. One to the Compiler Explorer image repository. That will be the thing that will actually add the installer for whatever application, whatever NIM installation that you want, and that will go into /ops/compiler explorer /nim/ some version wherever, and then some configuration support in the regular compiler explorer to actually make a new language. And there it's pretty much, if we just have a quick look at this, this is 20 commits. Sorry, no, files changed to 8. That's probably more interesting to look at. Yeah, come on. So the configuration properties, and like, so for example, here is all of the things that refer to where those executables would be for the language. It's a horrible thing. I'm so sorry. The configuration format, that is. Then we've got like the code that appears in the pane by default, and some examples. And then this is like the main part here, and there's just an array of like languages. You bung a new one in there. You explain what extensions it has and what it's called, and then there is a UI mode. Where is that? In here somewhere? It should be in here. Oh, it's here. This is an empty file. So this is like a copy pasty type thing. This teaches the UI how to syntax color the language, and you can go to if you search for monarch, not monarchy, monarchy of Monaco. Then you end up with, somewhere in here. Get out. There it is. The Monaco editor, Monarch. Then this is a good place to edit your language definition. So you can play around with it here. You just paste in something over here that looks like, your NIM language, and then you can fiddle around in here. And this block here is exactly what we need to teach the editor how to syntax highlight stuff. So hopefully that's all the information you need. Travis, obviously email me, ping me through whichever mechanisms. And more importantly, Wine server started over there. And it said starting, and it is spawned, but it is just where I was expecting it to, I don't know, give me control back. That's surprising. But we got the output right. Find server starting PID equals 11101. That is confusing to me. Well, if we don't foreground it, it's definitely going to go into the background. Oh, and I just used Control-C again, didn't I? So we'll get round to this eventually. Yeah, no worries, Travis. Thank you for your help. And the more languages we put on Compiler Explorer, the better. It's just as long as that they're useful to people. It's getting really dark here. Looks like it's going to rain. Oh, I see. There's the debug output. All right, we're getting there. See, ideally then what I would do is actually attach something, rather than using process.std in, std out, and std error, I'd actually use something which can then log it. But it seems like that worked. So winding the stock, -F and sync would wait until the process is closed. I see. See, I thought that spawn was something which just spawned it and ran it as an independent process rather than like exec, which waits. And the sync part of it is that the process itself is we wait until the process is launched, but not necessarily completed. But I obviously have got that wrong. Let's put the light on. Oh! I'm quite happy about the rain, to be honest. Okay, so we'll get given this env. Have we got an env there? Yeah, so killed exit code equals 1. See, I don't like that. That's not meant to be there, because we meant to put this wine debug equals -all, which should shut everything up. So I wonder if the environment is passed differently. I'm not sure. Go back over here. Let's do our ps-aux grep wine. We should have a wine server, hooray. And then let's make sure this has actually got, let's do cat proc that environ pipe pr 0 n. Pipe. Oh yeah, I was going to say pipe grep wine, but you know that they're already there. So yeah, we're definitely picking up the right values there. This is me looking at the process's environment. I'm just confused as to why we're seeing all those killed exit code equals 1 things. I mean, obviously we can redirect that to dev null, so I'm not too worried about that. Or oh, this is maybe a previous run when it says killing any pre-existing wine server. Okay, but if I control C this and I do, it's still running. Of course, it's still running. I've been trying to get away where it would just shut down as part of the process going. So if I get rid of this detached, it doesn't get its own process group. Yeah, exactly, Pan24. Yeah, starting to run out of time here. I was hoping that we get somewhere where I could get the Firejail bit. Oh, my screen's just died. I have this occasional problem where the screen flicks out as my docking station for my laptop is not perfect. Okay, so we've got PID 12329, and it didn't stop, so detaching didn't upset it, which is good news. So let's do our ps grep wine. Wonderful. If I control C this, everything shuts down. If I do this, it's still running. Okay, well that's unfortunate. So let's try and come up with a way of killing the process. Oh, I don't know which way to go. Do I want to unify this, or do I want to just check out Firejail running? I think I just want to get Firejail running. So I think I'm going to do a grotesque hack for now. Forgive me, but let's just see if we can't get this working at all. So this is Firejail running, and it's done through so apply wine env, apply wine env, apply wine env, takes just an env, and I'm going to say Firejail or jailed, and we're going to pass that on there and apply. Who else is calling what? Apply while env. We're going to do there, execute wine direct. So this is going to be false because it's not jailed. And over here, this is going to be true because it is jailed, which was nice. And in fact, we should probably extract this, and it shouldn't be a true or false. We should just extract that into a variable. Oh, come on, idea. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. All right, this is great when your IDE works, but when it isn't, it's just faster to do. Oh, my poor computer is having a bad time of it right now. Const Firejail equals. Oh, and I missed out the equals key, didn't I? So we're going to pass Firejail there, and then up here I'm just going to pass null, and it's a little bit more clear. Wine env, jail. I'm just going to call this Firejail because that's what it is. It's either null or not, and we're going to initialize wine, and it's either going to be running and Firejail or not. So comma Firejail. Right, if it's running already, that's great. So this is where I'm going to put the big grotesque hack, and we're just going to see what comes out of this. I know, I've already got it. That's that wine server Pantufel above on line 273 is already the horrific global variable. Yeah. So if Firejail, we are going to assume that the only thing we need to do is run the long-lived wine server, this bit basically. Oh, we need to let's extract those two up here because we're going to need them down below. Starting a new long-lived wine server, spawn sync. blah. And we should probably say, you know, starting a new Firejailed long live wine server, $server. And what we're going to do is we're going to run. Now, can you actually remember? I can't remember the command line. It was so long ago. What did we have running over here when we had it working? Good old history here. Okay, what do we do? That's the join. Firejail. There it is. So mukdir that and then. Okay, so we need to run Firejail, which is the actual command we're going to run. And we're going to run, the command line options are going to be, presumably this isn't running in bash already, so we're going to do /bin bash, which might be a problem. Mukdir $, and we've got the env dot. Where do we create this prefix? Prefix. Oh, it's just prefix. Prefix. Amp. Wine server -p. So I don't like that at all, but we also need to give some Firejail some options, don't we? So let's reformat and hope that we get something nice. Oh, apparently that was already nice according to the IDE. Come on, computer. No, not you. Something is taking up all my CPUs right now. And we have profile equals that. And bash -c, yeah. Oh, yeah, -c helps, doesn't it? -c. And then that. So we're going to do -- profile equals, etc. execute.profile, which is, of course, something I should share between other things. Formatted one line. Oh, come on, let's break the line there. It looks too horrible. And we're going to break the line there as well. I don't care about the formatting there. Lovely. And I'm going to say wine server PID equals that. Whoops. Firejailed wine server PID equals that. And I'm actually just going to return for now, even though I want to unify some of this stuff. Just see what happens. Oh, and I need to obviously turn on Firejailing in the first place. So that's going to be over here in C++ local. No, not C++ local. Haha. See, it's not there anymore. It is now in execution.local.properties. And I'm just going to comment back in that line there and then see what happens. And this is all just for a massive hack to get something working so that I can finish up knowing that at least I'm on the right track and then go for lunch because I'm starving. Change to 1. Yes, thank you. That is extremely important. Thank you, Pantufel, who has just said I need to change these things. Wine and wine server, and I'll do those in my local. So these are -stable, I think, was the magical thing here. So let's do that. So yeah, no compilers. Compilers will be done. Okay, go. Oh, I'm glad somebody's on track. Thanks, mate. Okay. Mukdir missing operand. Parent is shutting down. Bye. Okay, Firejail wine server PID equals that. Well, obviously that's not there anymore. Okay. Well, we know that the other part here, that clearly shouldn't have worked. Cause yeah, okay. Lots of things are going on here. Let's fix one thing at a time. So, $prefix. Oh, because I didn't use the right thing here. Now, my concern here is we're going to gradually accrue more and more Firejails. Let's see what happened there. Okay, wine server is not defined because it's just called server. Because why would it? What other thing? I guess a wine server would be what, like a sommelier. I could do some kind of cunning joke there, but I'm running out of steam. Okay. So now we have a problem that the Firejail process here seems to now be the thing that's now blocking forever. Let's try seeing where we are. Grep. Oh, parent is shutting down by. That's handy. So at the moment we're still running Firejail without the -- quiet, so it's going to give us some information. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Oh, here comes another cat. My phone will go meow in a second. Yes, I have an internet-connected cat flap. Oh, come on, Webpack. Oh, we're back to that original problem that we saw where something about this spawn is making it wait is back. That is unfortunate. If I were to go... Maybe I've got that detached wrong. Let's do PSA wine. Do we have like 30,000 wine servers? Yeah, we do actually. Well, 30,000 is a bit too many. So I wonder what spawn sync is actually waiting for. Shall we read the manual? Would that be daft? Spawn sync node. Yeah. Not return anything, whatever. Come on. So slow. Spawn sync. See options. Doesn't say anything about detached, you know. Maybe spawn meow. Oh, finally it tells me. Is generally, with the exception of the function, will return until the child process is fully closed. Ah ha ha! So, Pantoufle, you are actually totally right. Spawn. Given command. So we're going to have to use spawn and not spawn sync. Then we don't get... Oh, it says it returns child process, but we don't have a PID immediately. Alright, well, further exploration, we're just going to use spawn. What are you complaining about here? It's going to say it's not expected. Oh, right, well, we'll break the line there. Does that make you format it right? Apparently so. Okay, so we're going to spawn Firejail, and we're going to spawn it with those args, and we're going to actually detach it, and we get this wine server. And it is a child process, and I think it's going to say PID equals undefined. That would be my guess here. Oh, no, that worked. So maybe spawn was what I wanted all along. I must have confused myself earlier on. Yeah, Pantoufle, I think you were right all along. Thank you, mate. Sorry. Sorry for not listening properly. Okay, so that's running. So we now got a wine server.pid, and now more importantly, what was the PID? 13808. So I want to do firejail -- list and see that it says 13808. It does. Oh, we've got two of them running. So there is definitely one that's running from before, which is the thing I was trying to avoid with all of this stuff. So we're going to have to catch exceptions and fiddle around with supervisor in some way to make that the case. But ignoring all of those things for now, we're going to just go for the golden raw. Wine execution via Firejail is what we're going to look for down here. And we know that we're going to apply wine env to that. Command equals exec props wine base options.push whitelist equals blah blah. And really, what we want to do here is not whitelist equals wine prefix, although that does it. Is it working? Oh, of course, no. I don't know if that's working properly. Certainly not doing the dash dash join, is it? So and I think that's the right thing to do. I do think that's the right thing to do. So apply wine env, and then we're going to do dash dash join equals, and then we're going to do whatever that horrible global variable is. You don't get a promise with a non-sync, right? Yeah. Wine server dot pid. Now this should complain bitterly, because if I'm doing this right, because if you remember when we first ran this, any other commands after dash dash join equals caused it to go wrong. But I'm going to do that on purpose to make sure that I am actually testing the thing that I think I'm testing. Yes, private after join. Excellent. Okay, so that's working. So I think we're going to extract all of this and oh, I wonder if this is going to work with the dash dash private equals though. Well, that's annoying. I think we have a problem here. Darn it, Houston. We can try putting this at the end, but my suspicion now is if by joining the wine server Firejail environment, we're going to lose the ability to mount a directory which has the source code in it. Okay. Let's try it anyway. If this is all horrible stuff, needs wine. Oh, yeah, of course. Then we change the command up here. So let hack equals false. This is. I'm trying to make sure that I don't actually commit this. Hack equals true. If hack base options dot push. Oh, I had the whole thing in the clipboard. That and we're probably, what is it saying? No valid sandbox blast. So that is irritatus maximus. Yeah, I don't know if that's true. So Pantufel has just said if someone changes the current working directory from one process. I think that each process still has its own current working directory. Otherwise, I mean, the wine server is shared among multiple things, but it's also shared among multiple processes, each of which has its own current working directory. But there may be something, maybe I misunderstood exactly what you're saying there, mate. So I could easily be wrong. Well, that sucks. So we can't join directly because we lose this ability to map files. So let's just have a look at what join says. Join sandbox identified. Join file system. By default is that. We want to join it but not the file system. But we kind of do, because that's the whole thing. The /temp is what we needed to get at. Yeah. It's just we can't have it both ways. We can't have it both ways. We can't join the file system of another process but have a slightly different file system as well, which is what we've been asking it to do. Join network, join or start. Yeah. Okay, well, that's an unfortunate thing that we just discover right at the end. We kind of battled through so many things to get to this point, and we have now discovered that actually this isn't going to work, at least the way that I thought. So let's take stock. We can run wine server in a jailed environment, but we had a problem, at least when we tried to do it manually, in getting IPCs to work between two separate environments. But so we solved that by joining the hostname wine that we were running to the same container as the wine server process. And we've managed to get all of that working to the point now here where we unfortunately run into the second problem, which is that we can't have it both ways. We can't both join the file system of the wine server completely and have our own private home directory, because those are incompatible options, it appears. And he says invalid sandbox or something like that. No valid sandbox. So I think it means we need to come up with a better way of attaching the two environments together. I'm going to run --debug in here in case there's something that comes out. This isn't like a massive wild guess. Hope to goodness that we get something useful out. Okay, reading this stuff, switching to PID, the first child process inside the sandbox, error, no valid sandbox. Okay, now if I were to just comment out that block for now, what would we see? And I'm just wondering how many thousand wine environments we have now. Okay, what does this say? Still no valid sandbox. Okay, that's interesting. So maybe it's not what I thought. Maybe I jumped to conclusions there. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to undo, not background that. What does it say over here? Let's just PSAUX grep wine. Yeah, we have all of the wines here. No compilers found. PID 14. So this is the 14679. Let's run firejail --list and see if there is a 14679. There is. And if I just run locally here, we're going to say env exactly. All of that stuff looks good. And instead of running bash that, we're going to do --join equals 14679. And then we're going to run user bin wine stable, or wine64 stable, --help. See, we're not getting an error there. We're not getting an error there. 14681. Alright, we're just running that /?. Maybe it's the profile here. Let's get rid of that profile because we're inheriting the profile from. Why is it saying refusing to create a configuration directory there? That temp file. Oh, because it's not called temp wine test, is it? What do we call it? It's temp. Let's go back over here. No, not C++. Execution. Execute defaults. CE wine prefix. Okay, CE wine prefix. So there, what was happening is that we were trying to attach to the process and pointed it at a directory which doesn't exist in that process. See, that works. I mean, it's going through. This is what I was expecting to happen. Okay, yeah, wonderful, lovely. There is me running the compiler. Again, we're not doing the. We're not running the gathering. Confused am I? The no valid sandbox thing is just, I don't understand why that's there. I mean, I guess it's because I'm putting, well, let's run the actual command. Let's stop, I'm talking out loud too much here. We know that in execute.js or exec.js, I'm passing this dash dash, or I was passing dash dash debug and join. So in this one, we're definitely passing that. Oh, darn it. Pressed the wrong button. Okay, that's still working. Alright, I'm confused by this, and I'm going to stop it, and I'm going to run it with dash dash debug in Compiler Explorer, which is going to generate so much debug information that it will hurt. I mean, we're just piling up on sandboxing, but that shouldn't be a problem. And we're saying wine execution via Firejail, CL, that. Starting a new Firejailed long-lived wine server. So 15576, excellent. Then it runs Firejail dash dash debug. Let's go and paste this into the so we're going to do env wine prefix equals temp c wine prefix Firejail dash dash debug dash dash profile equals, I was hopeful there, dash dash join equals 15576 user bin wine stable opt all of this, come on, yes, slash query, which I have to now escape because fish. It's working. It works fine. It's working absolutely fine. I have a suspicion I know what this could be. Right, we're going to leave that for now. Apply wine. So do you remember we've got our little hack up here? Firejail wine server PID equals that. Right, you ready for this? Child process dot exec sync sleep 5. Different failure mode. Now we're hanging. No, we're working. Okay. But wine could not accept the wine loader. It's a different thing. Okay, we're into different worlds of pain. And we're hanging again here. Now that's what I used to have before I just hacked around with stuff. So it looks like, you know, the child process.spawn, because it's a synchronous thing. It's not a synchronous thing, sorry. We're going to need to like wait for it to start. Obviously, this is not an acceptable solution. I don't know where it's stuck though. Are we listening on port 10240? I don't think we are. No. Okay, so the execution completed because I get this execution type equals exited code equals 0. We've got all the output in the world for running it with /help. but things did not end well. So I don't know what happened there. We can put all of that stuff back in with extreme suspicion that that's not going to work in the general case. And are those executing or are they hanging? So this wine could not exec the wine loader is obviously a bit of a giveaway that something isn't quite right. Let's have a look. What is it saying in here? See, nothing is complaining. All right, I'm going to get rid of the debug because that does confuse the output on some of these things and make that quiet instead. And we're definitely on borrowed time now. I'm expecting my lovely wife to be home shortly. So it's saying gathering, execution type equals executing. So all these should be running simultaneously. But I wonder if there's a race condition here. We've kind of started up a daemon, and what I was doing before was running one command through it just to let it complete before I moved on. So I'm going to hack that back in again. So after our sleep 5, vomit, I am going to run a single process using, I'll just hackily copy paste that. And sleep 5, it's horrible, and this is not going to be child process.spawn, this is going to be .spawn sync or exec sync, and we're going to run, oh, it's horrible how those things are different. Let's just make it spawn sync to make it the same. All of those things, and this is not that, this is going to be dash Firejail dash join equals wine server dot pid, and then we're going to run wine, and we're going to run hostname, right? This is the hack that we were doing before. It's not going to be detached, and we're going to have everything output there. We're going to run the environment with the environment and see what happens there. And actually, before we do that, I'm going to do that. Yes, kill all Firejail. Yes, one compiler is working. I wonder if like the multiple of them trying to start up at the same time is not something that's well supported. So this hopefully will get the environment started up correctly, hopefully, and then everything should just work. Ha ha ha. So here it is, like all this font config error cannot load default config file. Is it like initializing the shiny new environment in that temp directory that's inside the jailed environment? There it is. It's finishing. Now it's running this. Yes. All right. So many things on it now. The thing now I'd like to see is whether or not the dash private thing is going to work. So the compilers will run with /help and all that stuff, but will they actually run here? No, because they won't have a file. No such file or directory. Okay, so that is going to be our problem. That will be our problem now, is we're back to the original issue of the... come on, brain. It's been a long time. The original problem of we can't mount that directory. By joining the other... Sandbox, by joining the Sandbox, we lose the ability to mount our own directory, which means we can't actually fire up the files that are unique to that particular execution. I am going to stop here because my brain is wilting. I'm going to pace around a bit. I'm going to hope my wife gets home soon and I'm going to get some lunch. I will crack on with this again in the afternoon. It's been really useful to have the feedback from you all, as always. So thank you very much. Yeah, no, it's. I don't think it's a problem. That z./example.cpp #254 that works without Firejail. It was working perfectly well before. If I turn off Firejail, this should all still work, and it's running the same commands. So I'm fairly confident that it's because that z : doesn't actually map to the same directory it used to. It used to map to the unique directory that process was having. Now I think it's just mapping to the home directory of the Windows thing. Come on. I will get there. I'm just having a real problem right now. The wine server's home directory, which obviously doesn't have the files that I've just put into it because it's living in some isolated space. So I think that's the case. I will explore some more. Again, thank you for watching. I'm going to stop here and get some lunch. But progress has been made, just not quite as much as I would have liked. I was really hoping to get a moment of joy here. And we still may yet. It may be that we don't have to join the process and we can experiment a bit more. Now we've learned a little bit about how to start up a wine server that lives quite happily by itself. We will see. Thank you very much for watching, and I guess I'll catch you another time. Hopefully I'll get some time tomorrow to continue down this route, and then maybe even next week I might spend a bit of time writing some C++ code. That's something that I'd like to do. I need to do because I have some things to do for a CPPCon talk submission I'd like to get done, but I need to spike out something. So I thought it would be sort of an interesting thing to show my C++ coding, as you've seen my horrible Bash, Python, JavaScript coding. Yes, thank you. I will enjoy my lunch. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you later. And bye for now, if I remember how to turn this off. Somewhere in here is the button. Oh, I think in this version of the YouTube client, again, I don't have a button to start and stop it. I instead have to just stop streaming, which I shall do now. Ta-ta!